On today's episode of Build Happily, we have AJ Bruno, CEO, QuotaPath.
QuotaPath is one of, if not the best integration for running commissions on HubSpot. And AJ brings us the story of how QuotaPath came to be, where it's headed in the future, what he learned along the way. And if you're another app out there wanting to build an app on HubSpot, he's going to share a ton of awesome guidance and advice, all on this episode of the Built Happily podcast. Stay tuned.
This is the Built Happily podcast, where we dive into building apps, companies, and relationships in the HubSpot ecosystem.
As HubSpot grows, so does the opportunity, and we put you in the room with the people making it all happen.
It's a beautiful day. We got AJ, CEO of QuotaPath. I want to salute.
Salute.
Breaking it on the game. We got to throw a salute.
I get a salute?
Yeah. I've heard of QuotaPath.
You heard of it.
Now I'm talking to the CEO. And I got a long list of questions. I was going to hit you ahead of time, but man, we just talking, man. We've crossed paths too many times. No pun intended, full pun intended. But I want to understand why quotes. Where did you come from? Why did you come into the commission thing? Did you scratch your own itch? I would love to understand where did QuotaPath come from?
Well, it's funny because you quotes and I think of CPQ. I didn't build a CPQ. I should have built a CPQ. I should have been like Cashflow and Sarika and got bought by HubSpot, apparently, if I built a CPQ platform. Or you guys know this just as well as I do. Because honestly, commissions and quoting and CPQ, like Happily, you all launched when did you launch your CPQ?
Jeez.
Great question. I should
feels
know that.
like years
Year
ago
and a
now.
half ago?
Yeah, it feels like in 2019.
No, way less. Right?
Yeah.
It was we're 3 months into it?
Yeah,
Three
we're like
months?
4 months.
Yeah.
I know I mentioned HubSpot and their acquisition fall, which there's a lot. Salesforce has bought 4 CPQ platforms in their lifetime.
That's
4.
insane.
Like, it's a problem that is just inherently always going to be a problem, and commissions are as well. So the genesis, the origin story, the founding story of QuotaPath, if you will, began back in 2015 when I had started my first company, TrendKite. I was 4 years in. We were about 25 million in revenue at that point. It was like super fast, all off the back of a B2B SaaS inside sales team in Austin, Texas. 400 people in one office building. Can you imagine?
It sounds like a Scottsdale thing.
Scottsdale? Is that what you said?
Yeah, like a Scottsdale call center where I used to live. They used to
Yeah.
call centers was like everybody's call centers everywhere.
It's so funny because I think it was Outbound Engine that started a Scottsdale like call center from Austin. Like, a lot of people move to Austin to start inside sales teams, but then you like go to an even cheaper city like Scottsdale to do it. And I had a lot of new grads. That's what I'm sure you were, Dax. Like new grads and just call centers there. But no, we were 120 inside sellers. Like, average contract value was around $17,000. It was right in the square of mid-market inside selling, but we were selling to like Nike and Hershey.
That math is good.
Yeah, it was good. It worked really well. We scaled up really fast on that team. But one of the challenges, there are 2 like big issues. One, first off, with that type of sales team and you're growing roles so fast, variable comp was a massive issue. So we saw, like, just at the end of a quarter, a rep would come up to me like, AJ, you're the freaking founder of this company. Like, why can't you just fix my comp, dude? Like, fix it. And that was always a challenge. I was like, I'm just a founder. I'm a lowly founder. I can't do anything. I had to go to a CFO and I got to get legal sign off on this. And so I was like a ruminating idea at that point because we brought on a tool called Exactly and just didn't work for us at that time. We were growing too fast and it wasn't flexible and scalable, and the reps didn't have visibility to their comp. So that was step 1. Step 2 was all around distribution. This is where the important part of the conversation comes in here, Dax, is that we saw that PR agencies were great early adopters of the software TrendKite because it was PR analytics. However, we wanted to skip them altogether because they were a little bit of a detractor. They were early adopters, but then we wanted to go direct to the bigger brands. And when we sold to the bigger brands, the PR agencies were like, wait a second, you gave us access to this great tool. And yet now we're getting screwed by you guys
Well,
because
because their clients are using it instead of
yeah, like why are we double paying for this? So it became an issue. And so I thought a little bit about partnerships and what would distribution need to look like, because it felt like the world was changing so much. As an inside sales team is just not going to stay here forever. This is not going to how like businesses should scale. So in 2019, when we started QuotaPath, I thought about a different model, and it came in two flavors. One was in product-led growth in PLG and getting users to adopt the product. And then the second was in partnerships. And we knew we were going to connect to CRM. And we knew obviously that we were going to start our our very first integration was going to be with Salesforce, but I had an opportunity to make a bet elsewhere in the CRM space. In 2018, I feel like HubSpot was probably doing 500 million in revenue, and I would guess like less than 10% of that was through CRM at that time. But the app marketplace had just launched, and it looked like it was going to be a real thing. And I got connected to Scott Brinker and chatted with him a little bit. And at the time, their head of product, a guy named Aaron, really found a liking to QuotaPath and knew that commissions were broken. And it went all the way up to the board level with Halligan, where Brian had started the partnership with Exactly, but knew that that wasn't the right thing and that they were like more aligned with Salesforce. And we got connected with HubSpot Ventures and Brad Coffey and Brandon Greer. And so the rest is history, but there's a lot more to that story, but I'll pause there because I think that's where like the original genesis of how does a company scale to real scale without having to go build a massive inside sales team.
I forgot that we're venture cousins.
We are venture cousins. For sure. We are absolutely venture cousins.
Man, I'm thinking back to remembering my HubSpot onboarding days and thinking I was a genius, with a calculated field being like, hey, here's the closed won amount of the deal and here's 5% of it in a property. There's your quota there's your commission. And I was like, man, Albert Einstein of HubSpot over here, right? So, I mean, if for the folks out there listening to this, having issues with, we're closing deals in our HubSpot CRM, and then somehow we have to get commission into the paychecks of our salespeople, right? What would be sort of like your elevator pitch of QuotaPath and how that integration with HubSpot actually works, like in a nutshell, so we can level set with the folks listening of what this actually is?
It's native as it gets. We took full advantage of HubSpot App Cards, which was like a beta program at the beginning of April of last year, and built it. We had a two-way sync that was built to deal cards. But now if you're a rep directly inside Sales Hub, inside CRM, you can forecast your deals and it will run the math and see what your commission is. And by the way, it's not going to be a 5%er. And so it will allow you to see the different ways to earn your money. If this is a multi-year contract, what would that look like? If I added this service or this product line to it, what would that do? So you can play this what if game directly inside HubSpot CRM.
Did you start with app cards right off the bat, or did it have like more humble beginnings of like sucking deal properties out and like doing some calculation in QuotaPath? And
I had an Excel spreadsheet and I had a calculator, and first off, I have a lot of great ops people at QuotaPath. I am not one of those. So I'm an operator, don't get me wrong, but spending days in spreadsheets is just not my jam. So no, we built a standalone app, and we thought about our integrations being agnostic. If you think about commissions and QuotaPath, we're really like a middleware workflow management tool sitting between CRM and then on payroll, getting actually paid through QuotaPath. We knew that was going to be the end goal, but we had to suck in the right data. And that right data is sometimes spreadsheets, CRM, and there's also issues or also like other financial like Stripe. So here's where Hapily, like I actually just got off a call with one of my CX reps who said that Hapily helped get the Stripe data correctly to HubSpot because we were having an issue. This is where onboardings get stalled because like, well, on a pre-qualification or a pre-qual, they'll like, oh, all of our data's in CRM. No, it ain't. It's not. It's not. They lie. They have no idea. They don't lie.
They just don't know. That's the challenge.
They don't know what they don't know.
They don't know.
And then you got to go bother other people.
So we dealt where there's like, okay, you're enriching the data, but you have these financial systems, QuickBooks. Obviously, we all know our HubSpot's history with QuickBooks and their continued history with QuickBooks. But like having that data come in and then enriching it and then giving it to payroll. Payroll has to be within the cent. It has like there. I have a customer who has 5 million record transactions a month, and that obviously that data is like there's just a lot going on with that data, and we use for our earnings calculation we use 6 decimal places, so you can round to 6 places, but obviously for generally accepted accounting principles there's 2 cents. And so like those numbers can get very different very quickly because of that. So we've had to like build features for larger customer bases that have this rounding issue when they go to pay out, so that they match across the board. And it's incredibly difficult, incredibly challenging. Now on the HubSpot integration, we just took advantage of the opportunities. We leaned in, we raised our hand when we could, and we looked at it not as what HubSpot would do for us, but what can we do for HubSpot? What can we do for their customer base? Yamini talks about 8 integrations and the stickiness. Talks about easy, fast, unified. Things that we believe as well. Like I think the unification piece of it is 100% true. Like you can get your all in one, and it's this magic box of things. You just have to find the right player, service, vendor, SaaS solution to build to that world that you want to build to.
Man, I want to take a step back because you casually mentioned, you're like, yeah, I started this company. It was like, 25 million rev and 100 some people, human problems.
Yeah.
So where did entrepreneurship come in for you? Was it day one selling bubble gum out of your locker? Did you go to school did you get your master's in entrepreneurship?
That's called starting a company. There's a couple things way back. I have like 3 real quick stories on this. One, I was a childhood actor and a stage performer. I did professional theater. I acted in not just plays in like local theater, but like actually Pittsburgh Public Theater at Carnegie Hall. And I did Shakespeare, and I've won Shakespearean contests when I was growing up. And I acted with some really awesome people. One of my friends was this woman named Gillian Jacobs. She was in the show Community, and she was a very close friend growing up, and I acted with her in a lot of things. She went on to go to the Juilliard. I thought I was going to go to Carnegie Mellon, CMU, but the stage, I had a little bit of a pivot that I'll get to in a second, away from the stage and away from acting, obviously. The stage allowed me to really learn at a very early age a skill set that is massively important, and that is storytelling and communication. So I was able to learn that so early, and it's just kind of pressed upon me. And so you think about the role of a business owner, CEO, and like one of their main goals is to paint a vision. Like that's the strategy. Like that's it. Communicate the strategy, communicate expectations. And that was something that was really helpful. The second thing is that my dad was a commercial pilot for US Airways, and my mom was a flight attendant. And in the 90s for US Airways, they had some difficulties. They had 3 big accidents. One that happened in Pittsburgh in 1994. My dad's best friend was killed. I was the co-pilot on that flight. And that really was a big event. Those were big events for my dad, who was pretty confident he was going to lose his job, that US Air was going to go under. And he started a business on the side. It was a video production business. And that's kind of how I got into acting as well. But it really helped to learn as a business. He was a business owner and just entrepreneurship at a very early age, that I was just around that. A very different type of services, type of business. But it was really helpful. And like I can very clearly remember when we'd go on family vacations, we'd land in London, and the first thing he had to do was go to a payphone and call the office. So I just always have that in my mind. But the dinner table conversations revolved around one of 2 things: either aviation or business ownership. So that was really helpful. The third thing, which was really fundamental, and there's kind of like a milestone side story I'll tell really quickly, which is when I graduated from school, I went to Penn State. I knew I wanted to own a company at some day, but I didn't know what field to get into. I was an econ major, and so I was more of a generalist. And I asked a lot of like friends and family. I had a couple uncles that were really successful in business as well. One of them said to get into sales and start your career in sales. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah, sales, you'll get the background, everything you need on the revenue and the go to market and the like generating machine. So that was really helpful. And I went to a company called Meltwater that was 1,000 sellers. Company was 1,200 people and there were 1,000 cold call sellers at
That
different
sounds about
offices.
right.
It was ridiculous, but it was awesome because I moved up really quickly and I started running the Philadelphia office at 24. So I got to make a ton of mistakes. And then I opened the San Diego office, and then I ended up running West Coast sales operations at 25, 26. And something happened at that time that just like transformed and made me go start a company, which was I was dragged to go see Tony Robbins. I don't know if you know who Tony Robbins is. Unleash the Power Within, and it was life changing. And this was August of 2012, and I haven't looked back. But I had 3 goals leaving that. That one, I wanted to finish my pilot's license. I had like a limiting belief that I didn't finish what I started, and so that was one. Yeah. 2 was I wanted to own an airplane in 3 years, and 3 was I wanted to start a business. I mean, my wife and I are 27 years old, probably $50,000, $70,000 in debt, still from school, from car payments or whatever, renting. Didn't have anything. I didn't have much to my name. I had my 401k that I pulled out. So I left that, started TrendKite that day, August of 2012. And then, a crazy amount of things happened. We ended up in Austin, Texas, sold the business to Cision PR Newswire for $225 million in 2018 and jumped right back into the battle.
That's funny.
Yeah, Cision. Yep. That was a public company at the time, GTCR owned. But yeah, there we go.
I used to do translating for Cision.
What did
translator the news and stuff? That's funny.
What did TrendKite do again?
PR analytics attribution. So if you read an article in the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, we could go back to the brands and tell them what their true ROI on that article was, not just like the impression readership BS numbers that you get, but like the true readership. And going back, it was one part cookie technology, Google Analytics, but another part it was like the media monitoring. So it was like the next evolution of what Meltwater, which was a competitor, and Cision were doing.
This all like makes sense now when I was like doing the translating for Cision, because what I had to do when I was this was 20 around the same time, right? Like 2008, 2009.
Mm-hmm.
My side hustle, because I was a skateboarder, so my like make some money was to watch the news in Spanish, watch Telemundo and Univision, and log it, what they were saying and what brands were mentioned. Every time like we talked about Crest. Okay, Crest was mentioned here for 35
So you would have TVI's probably would have been there's another player, and then there was another one that was out of New York that I forget the name of. Brandwatch was in there too. Yeah,
that was my job, and that was like Cision.
That's crazy.
Like I would record it on the VHS tape.
Yeah, clipping service.
Back from skating, I would go translate it and like send it in to them, and it makes sense because you're doing the whole PR log. It all makes sense now. My life, a chapter's closed now. I'm
always very fascinated to hear about like the moment in time that you went, I'm going to build this thing called QuotaPath. It's going to be a commission software, because I know it's not always that clean cut, right? Sometimes it starts as something else, or the idea is a little bit different, or maybe it's like, this is exactly what I wanted to build, and we went out and built it.
No, it's ours hasn't changed. I mean, it's 8 years in. We haven't pivoted.
Yeah. Tell me about that first moment, right? Where you're just like, this is what I want to do, and kind of how you got there.
So Cole, my co-founder at QuotaPath, was my director of revenue operations at TrendKite.
Yeah.
And when we rolled out Exactly, we were just like, this is a mess. Like, what else is out there? There's got to be something else out there. And no, there wasn't. There literally wasn't. There's this 20-year-old legacy software. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. We have so much opportunity here. Like, let's keep digging. And so one part of it is like, if there's a process that you're using just spreadsheets for, and we all use spreadsheets for lots of things, there's probably an opportunity. But you just have to dig into it to see if one, is a TAM big enough, and 2, is there like product market fit in this long term. With TrendKite, because I came from an industry, we had product market fit from day one. And I didn't realize how I took it. I took it for granted, honestly, because product market fit is a really big deal. But because I just had thousands of hours of customer knowledge and customer conversations in industry, we just knew from day one that was going to be a fit, and it was. It went from 0 to 25 million in 4 years. And it was awesome. It was a great ride. QuotaPath, the pivots have been much more around the persona, the buyer, the seller, the ICP, and who we're selling to. And that's taken on a lot of changes, because if you think about it, we started in 2019. CROs and sales leadership had much more budgetary control than they do today. They could actually go out like, okay, yes, Salesforce, also Clary for forecasting or whatever, and they're like having control over those things. And then 2020, 21, everyone was buying everything, and it just became like a bunch of noise. And it slowly but surely is clamped down, where RevOps is a great buyer for us. And then we obviously had to service the finance team. So like a much more challenging aspect of this is like, well, you have to build a great product for each of these personas. And that's very, very difficult.
Tell me about like V1, right? Very first version of QuotaPath. What was it like? What did it do? Tell us about it.
It came out 3 months after we started the company. Eric Heidenberg built it. It didn't have any integrations. You couldn't even bulk upload a spreadsheet. You had to like add deals manually, like one by one. It was basically more of a CRM at that point than anything. But like, it worked. And our first customer was The Hustle. And you all may know The Hustle, because HubSpot bought The Hustle. They were our very first. I was just talking to Adam Ryan. He actually joined our virtual kickoff. He's the president of The Hustle. And hilariously, Cole walked into The Hustle's office. It was on East 6th Street in Austin. And he was like laying out like QuotaPath. And we had like the for all the reps, there were like 7 reps. And they had like the base and the OTE and kind of going through it. Well, unbeknownst to Cole, the reps had same variable but different bases. And
that was the first time they knew that, and they're just like, wait, what, dude, who, why?
So Adam was like, his top seller was like, immediately after that, I want to raise right now. And so we kind of like oops, but it was good learning lesson for us, and just turns the sensitivity behind comp and making sure that you're doing a lot of the right things.
The funny thing that I've learned with Event Hapily, right, is when you think about the event space, there's like a lot of very basic motions of promote your event, get people to register for it, and then track the attendance to see if they went, right? Like those 3 elements are like, for the most part, kind of present in every single sort of like event strategy we see with customers. But then the other thing that I've learned is that everyone does it differently, and they want to do it differently. And it can either be intensely simple or hyper unnecessarily crazy complex. Like it's one of those things where we work with a lot of companies that have done a great job of getting everything out of their spreadsheet and into the CRM except their event management process, right? And we have some folks that do some things in some pretty crazy ways. I can imagine you see, and again, I'm no expert on commission structures or anything, but I can imagine there's a lot of different ways to do it, right? And depending on the customers you work with, you've probably seen every sort of possible way under the sun people like to structure commission program and things like that. How do you build, and then like maybe you have some stories on this, but like how do you build a platform that could be flexible enough to handle any situation, or do you limit it somehow? Do you like, are there guardrails you apply? Like, how do you guys approach something like that? Like, and I could see the pain in your face of probably some crazy stuff you've like seen. Tell me about it.
If you were to say like, AJ, what are like the top 3 challenges at QuotaPath in just like the lifetime in the 8 years that you've like just toiled over the last, that wakes you up at night? And this is one of them, 100% one of them. I thought about this where Carta does a good job of this. You take a point of view on something and you kind of stick to it. Their point of view is that equity should be equitable and fair and visible, and like we want. So like Henry Ward, the CEO of Carta, talks about this, where in the early days they had a decision point where they had one of their customers reach out to them and said like, hey, we're having employees leave and you're sending them notifications around their equity and like how many days, like the window, the exercise window of 30 days or 60 days or 90 days or whatever. We don't want that. And
they're going to do the right thing.
so you kind of have this point of view, like what do we represent?
Like how should it work? Yeah.
Yeah. And comp is kind of the same thing where it's like, well, it's visibility. Like if you don't want to show your team like what they're earning, then we're not going to be a great fit for you. And that happen. It's really unfortunate because this is where these two things get meshed, because we have a lot of unnecessarily complex comp plans that come to our door. And my original thesis point of view was like, well, we'll just help them change it. But that's simpler said than done, right? Because you have a new RevOps leader coming and they're like, well, here's the comp plan. I've been tasked to go do this thing and bring on a commission software. Does this work? Does QuotaPath work? Well, like 3 years ago or 4 years, 70% works. Okay,
Yeah.
we've got to become more adaptable. So we've got to have all comp plans and all integrations. So my message to was all comp plans, all integrations. But it was like, no, but that's not right. It's the right comp plan and the right integrations. And so we've had this back and forth. It's this like natural tension where we've added a lot of plan support. You add multi-level approvals and manager plans and CS or draws or whatever, like multi-field earnings, cumulative quotas. I could name a million billion permutations of within our software. And so on one hand, we are very flexible and adaptable. On the other hand, I feel like the challenging part is the more complex you make it, the easier it is to get frustrated and just make mistakes. And like, it doesn't matter if a tool's doing that or not. You're just, data is data, and it's only as good as what's going in. And like, just, we've have a lot of challenging data problems that come up from time to time. And so those snowflakes of comp plans, yes, they absolutely exist out of our 1,000+ customers, but we're doing a better job of like having the comp plan console pre-qualification, just like, look, we'll just tell you up front, these pieces aren't going to work. You can come back to us, or we can find a HubSpot solutions partner, or we can find Hapily, or we can find like enter some other tool to like help do it to get you onboarded there. Once you're there, then you can come back to us.
Yeah.
And I think that's worked better, but we're still hitting some pain from early customers that we sold that are, even making their comp plans more ridiculous than they already were.
Yeah, I felt that pain a lot doing HubSpot implementations because, like, I cut my teeth doing like Marketing Hub implementations at HubSpot when that was still kind of the bulk of, what new customers were doing, like as it was kind of transitioning into a CRM. And just, I remember, I'd spend a minimal amount of time saying, this is how you push the buttons and set the tool up and make it work. And like 90% of my mental calories were spent on being like, no, don't do it like this. And here's why. And I ended up playing like coach, psychologist, the friend who's going to tell you the hard truth you don't want to hear, right? Screaming at people that you didn't just buy an email tool, buddy. Like, there's a bigger thing behind this, right? Do you guys like take a very intentional stance around, what a good comp plan looks like and the best practices? And do you try to push that with your own educational and consultative stuff? That's not just features in the product, but this is how we think you should do this.
We're doing more things to bolster that. We had Comp Hub that we launched in 23, which was like, here are the templates, here's the quota to OT ratios, here's the right things. And we just launched AI powered plan builder, which allows you to upload PDFs. The great thing about QuotaPath is the flexibility. It's very differentiated than anything else out there, that it's like Lego blocks. So you have the pieces of a comp plan, because a comp plan is not the 5% straight. It's okay, well, it's 0 to 100%. They earn 10%, and then they have an accelerator, and that accelerator's retroactive. And then they have a services piece. It's got to look at this field inside HubSpot. And oh, by the way, product line items.
The time issue, like how long do you get it? Like, do you get churned?
Payouts eligibility? When do they get paid out commissions? There's a lot of like pieces to this. The funny thing, we should talk about 1,000 calls that have to do with HubSpot product line items because of how transactions, and we could have that whole conversation.
That's a long one.
It's but like there's complexities in this that you just have to unwind. So QuotaPath does a good job of like at the deal level saying like, okay, this deal earned this component, this path. We used to call them paths, now we call them component, multi-year, because it was looking at the HubSpot field on the deal card of like 12 months. That's an easy example, but then it's got to look at other different things. And so when you add them all up, you can get this visually like a tree basically of what your comp is. And that's just super unique to the market. And it's better suited for HubSpot type customers because it simplifies everything. It puts it in line, and it also just makes it so that the reps clearly understand it. So then you embed that into HubSpot. And the opportunity there is, okay, we took that for HubSpot app cards, but what about quotes, right? If a rep is like, I want to see how much I want to make before I even send it out, and it gets approved and I can forecast it out, there's probably an opportunity to be able to forecast at the CPQ level too.
Yeah, I was talking with Graham because we have a feature where you can send a message to somebody, and I want to include variables in that message. That variable could be that variable commission, and it would say you're going to earn this at this date if this wins. Good luck, like explosion, right? Having that when they're building the quote, so it's even more incentive to pass that process and go through that.
Yeah. I think the other thing, that I always notice is like a lot of the times when people came to HubSpot, a lot of them, they weren't coming up saying like, I know inbound marketing and I would like to do inbound marketing. And that's why I bought an inbound marketing tool, opposite. Right? It's always just like, oh, we needed a CRM because we know we need one. Or like, we want to send out a newsletter. So we got this. HubSpot, the reason it's so great is because it's built to support this strategy, right? Like HubSpot is nothing without the strategy, like point blank period, right? But don't get me wrong. Like I would work with plenty of teams that were like, we understand the inbound marketing thing. We're behind it. We want to do it. We know this is the best tool to get it done. Like we're on the same page. Let's go. I could imagine that you have customers coming to you with specific comp plans. They know what they want to do, right? Do you have teams that like come to you that say like, listen, we're new to the whole commissions thing. We don't really quite know what strategy we want to use. We just know that we need a system that can handle it. How do you approach those folks, right? To like help them maybe come up with that strategic part that isn't necessarily a feature in a product as well? 100%. Or is it more so you got to have your strategy before you come see us? You
can go to our site right now and sign up for a comp plan consult with Graham or with Ryan Milligan. And we do about 500 of those a year. I know. So it's a ton. Now there's an opportunity to look at the benchmark data that we have because we have a really great data and help our customers in more of a dynamic way, like pick the right comp plans in the product and using AI. So stay tuned on that. But 100%, most of our customers have come to us and said like, I have this issue. I know we need to change this. What should this look like? And at our kickoff last year, I had a pyramid, and the pyramid was split into cohorts of customers. So at the bottom were customers that don't have variable comp plans. Those aren't fits, right? Yeah. The second one was misaligned incentives, or incentives where the customers' admins were purposely making it confusing for their teams. And that's a challenge. If they come to us and say like, hey, we want to calculate it, but we don't want our team to have access to QuotaPath, that's not a good fit. And then there came like the adapted, like the ones that wanted to adapt to it. And those were great customers because they're like, we have this strategy. We want to be able to make it better. Where we are looking at in Headed is like aligned incentives, where you have customers that are like, here's our company objectives. We want to waterfall those objectives on the team and incentivize that entire team appropriately to drive the right outcomes. That's where we're headed as a business. And what we're thinking about is like, okay, it's not just about variable comp or sales commissions. It's actually about driving the correct the most successful outcomes you can as a business. And how do you do that? Well, you incentivize the behavior.
Yeah, incentivize the behavior. That's some call center verbatim right there. Incentivize the right behaviors, and there you go.
There you go.
I feel like we've gotten like a pretty good kind of picture of like the buildup leading into kind of where we're at today. Like, this is going to be a broad question, but like, what's the future of QuotaPath look like? Like, without giving away anything you can't, talk about, right? where you kind of see it going, and what are you most excited about, and what do you want to build?
I think we're at this really interesting opportunity in the world. Our companies were probably born just slightly ahead of the AI curve, but make sure that we introduce AI in the right way. And for QuotaPath, it was like, well, that tip of the spear, that comp design, that comp plan consult that you're talking about, Max, that's a great opportunity. But then where does that go? Well, then it goes to the next natural thing, which is the mappings. Like, AI should be able to look at QuotaPath, look at HubSpot, look at the APIs, and tell us what fields we need to connect and how.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. What data are we missing? Even
what data are we missing? Exactly.
Yeah.
What data is not here? We should be thinking about this. Then the next step to that, you can imagine the AI goes over the data set and helps answer questions for a rep. So like, well, if I have these 2 deals in Q4 pipeline, if I pull them forward, like what deals make the most sense where I can earn the most money, basically.
The dream math machine.
It's one thing for sales reps, I think, to be able to talk to Copilot and be like, oh, tell me anything new about this company that I'm trying to sell to.
Yeah.
Like, it's a whole different level if you could be like, how can I maximize my commission on this thing?
Like give me the thing reps do, which is gamifying their comp, like help me do it.
Yeah. Having an AI that has that deep understanding of your sales process and the deep understanding of your comp plan and can do a lot of these calculations and math for you in real time, but has your business's tribal knowledge, if you will, of how this program works and everything.
You have the inputs of what are the KPIs that you're really trying to move and change. And you have all of the data there in front of you, and you have benchmarking data with other companies. I look at this as sales teams aren't going away, and QuotaPath is like at the most unique position possible with AI, with outcomes-based results and per user pricing potentially going away. And we're very focused on outcomes, so that helps us. And then solving a real problem, because commissions, our inbound funnel, if it were marketing and our brand, are really strong. So we have an inbound machine today, and knock on wood, I hope that continues, but that's because customers truly have this problem. And so we've created a lot of really great resourcing and content for them to check out as step one, but the product actually has to do the heavy lifting, and then it can actually then revert back to that product-led growth opportunity that we talked about.
I wonder too, it almost feels like AI could be a good way to get sales folks, and then, I don't know, for lack of a better term, admin and leadership, to be able to have better conversations around comp plans. Because me as a salesperson, I might feel a little bit more comfortable asking more pointed questions to an AI that might not judge me, thinking I'm just trying to game the system, right, around my comp plan, right? But then I think at the same time, AI could look at those conversations and understand, hey, there's questions I'm getting asked that we don't necessarily have either the process or the answers to, or I'm seeing a clear trend in where people are confused around the comp plan, and then being able to communicate that back to the people putting it together, the people who administer it, or anything like that, and almost act as this really smart sort of like middleman between the two, and that might, I don't know, do a better job at communicating that stuff and like kind of like truly understanding the problem in a way that's not either slowed down or mired or avoided from uncomfortable conversations or things like that.
So the challenge with that, though, Max, is that AI is non-deterministic. So you're going to get different answers for different things. But the great thing about it is if you have data, the data that it's looking at, those are locked in. So the calculations and the computations, which computers are best suited for, like that is already there. And you add the layer on conversational, it makes it much easier, as long as you're not just getting like random ghost answers from it. But that is where I see that there's just like the biggest opportunity across a lot of different SaaS tools. And I think ones that aren't just like, unless you're an AI first company, I don't actually, outside of the language models themselves, ChatGPT or others, I don't use a ton of AI. I use Gong's AI, I guess. But outside of that, I'm really focused in on getting the best answers for my business as possible. And so like, I think AI actually is a massive accelerator to that.
Yeah. I think one last kind of like big thing, because I know Dax is going to have some questions here to kind of, get us over land the plane here. But what sort of advice would you have for other companies and organizations that have this like really awesome app that they've built that does this very specific thing, what sort of advice would you give them on how to come play in the HubSpot ecosystem and why it's a good choice and what to look out for and what mindset they should be in when considering something like that?
First and foremost, you have to do the work. You guys know this as well as I do. It's a lot of work. We're talking years. And you have to be able to be willing to make a bet. In 2018, HubSpot was nowhere with the CRM. And I told my investors at that time, well, look, if you knew what you knew about Salesforce in 1998, wouldn't you put everything you could invest in that ecosystem? And everyone would say, yeah, of course. I think from what I can tell, HubSpot's making a pretty big push in this area, and it's going to become something. It's just going to be a little bit of a trickle. But if we invest the time and we put the effort into it and we engage in the right ways, then we'll see signs from that. But it's one of like 5 bets that we made, and some worked out and some didn't. The product-led growth is still something I'll probably knock on the door of at some point, but that one definitely did not work out. And HubSpot has led to 60% growth last year, the tailwinds for sure. And I think Rippling is going to have that's another bet that we made. But we're agnostic when it comes to integrations, certainly on the payroll provider. So there's others that we'll be launching shortly as well. But it's just really great to be able to work with great partners, and HubSpot's been a fantastic partner. I think the thing where I am pushing on them more, and I'm sure you guys see the same way, is that on partnerships, the team itself is a little siloed. It sits under the product org, which is great in the sense that they get a front row seat to the customer. But the challenge is it disconnected on the go-to-market. So seeing a co-sell, co-service motion come to fruition would be my hope one day.
True.
Co-sell alongside.
Pushing for it hard. Yeah.
It's just tough. And the go-to-market teams are so slammed and there's so much noise that we've actually backed off a little bit there this year on direct with the go-to-market team. I actually meet once a month or once a quarter with Yamini and just kind of talk through some of the app partnerships, what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing. And I think it's really helpful for her to best understand the ecosystem, AI, demand, and where things are headed.
Nice.
That's the game, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Learned way more about who AJ is. We asked people 3 questions before we let them go that we weren't expecting. So number 1, now I have to ask, what is from your playwright and your play experience, what is the line that's always in your head? Like
if we shadows have offended, think but this and all is mended, that you have but slumbered here while these visions did appear, and this weak and idle theme, no more yielding but a dream. Gentles, do not reprehend. If you pardon, we shall mend. And as I am an honest puck, if we have unearned luck, now to escape the serpent's tongue, we will make amends ere long, else the puck a liar call. So good night unto you all. Give me your hands if we be friends, and Robin shall restore amends. So that's Puck, Midsummer Night's Dream. That's the last one.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, you're like Macaulay Culkin, where you just remember all the lines and you're just the best.
So it's that story. If you weren't picking up what I was throwing down there, Puck is the mischievous fairy actually in the play that plays tricks on everyone and just creates a whole comedy of errors. But then he cleans up the mess at the end. And this is him saying, look, I had this, you all had fun and games as an audience, but I am the fixer. So I cleaned up the mess. I took care of it all. And that's what I do day to day as a CEO.
Nice.
That is dope. Second question is, you're in Austin, Texas.
I'm in Philly. I have time between Austin and Philly. Yeah.
Jump back. Well, what's your favorite Texas restaurant? Because I live in Texas as well.
My favorite Texas, like Austin, Texas restaurant?
Yes.
Oh man, that is, well, let me go with my favorite barbecue because that's like the thing. So I still like Cooper's in Llano. And the cool thing about Cooper's is that my plane used to be located at Austin Bergstrom. And every weekend I would fly up to Llano or other places like, oh man, what's out in Hill Country? Why am I forgetting the name of it? Starts with an F, doesn't matter. I'll think of it in a second and it'll bother me. But I'd fly up to Cooper's and then you could take a car, like a service car, and go hang out. So I would drive employees, or I'd fly my plane to Llano, and then I would go to Cooper's and we'd fly back. And one Monday I came in and my general counsel and my CFO and my head of HR were all waiting for me. And they're like, AJ, we don't have the commercial liability for you to do that anymore. So I unfortunately don't do that. But Cooper's is my favorite barbecue. I would say in Lockhart, Black's is my go-to. In Austin itself, I am La Barbecue. I'm a big La Barbecue fan. Franklin's it's fine, but it's not. I don't think it's worth the wait.
Last question, man. So you've sold a couple companies. First time you sold your first company, what was the first thing you did? Right when that check hit, what was the first thing you did?
My wife and I took a cruise with some friends, and I took a 2-week vacation. And that's the longest I've ever taken a vacation anywhere. That's the longest I've taken time off in my working career since 2007 was that 2 weeks, and where I actually had a mental break. So it's the only thing I did. I mean, I had already purchased a plane at that point. We took a part of the check and invested. My wife owns a childcare center that she's just expanding now. So that was another purchase that we made, which was her preschool.
That's what I'm talking about. Well, man, AJ, appreciate you coming on, sharing the tidbits. Where can everybody find you?
LinkedIn's still probably the place to go. I will tell you, I am very off social these days. I am just heads down in my business. In my company, I have 3 daughters and 3 girls, and they do all the activities. One of my daughters is on 4 basketball teams. She's on AAU as well.
She's on AAU. Oh, she's crossing people up.
She's 3rd grade, and she's definitely the only one, Dax, that can go between her legs crossover. So
she's awesome. Already all right. That's enough.
Oh, this is sick. This is the girl dad symposium.
Yeah,
we need to do a whole episode on that. Yeah.
I freaking love it. I coached one of her teams. I'm assistant coach on another, and then her AAU is just like out of my league. But she's so good. She's awesome, and she's so much fun to watch. And they just won their Eastern PA championship, and she was the MVP of the tournament last week. So
man, in 3rd grade out here.
Yeah, so I don't got time for other stuff, but you can find me on LinkedIn and you can hit me up there.
That's the best.
It was a podcast too, right? There's another podcast that you mentioned.
Top Line, which airs every Sunday. We have one that comes out, and then Kyle Norton runs revenue leadership under the Top Line umbrella as well. But Sam Jacobs, Austin Zaman, and myself can be found there as well. Spotify, Apple, YouTube, all the things.
Well, appreciate it, dude. You have a good one. You go high five girls for you. There's 7 little girls running around.
Oh my gosh. That's insane. That's insane.
Awesome.
Dax, Max, thanks guys.
Thank you so much, AJ. Appreciate the time, man. Sweet.